We just had a new client sign up for our account opening services. He's a business owner with a US LLC, and he was a customer of RelayFi for 3 years. In case you're not familiar, Relay is a popular digital banking solution in the United States. And like most digital banks, they're notorious for shutting down accounts on a whim. And that's exactly what happened to this business owner last week. With zero notice, zero explanation. So if you have a Relay account or any digital bank account for your business, this video is going to be an important watch because I'm going to be sharing 3 things. First, I'm going to tell you why we think Relay closed this account so you can avoid closures like this for yourself. Second, I'm going to share how we'll help this client open a new bank account with a real brick and mortar US bank, including the specific bank that I think he's going to end up opening with. And third, I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can protect your business bank account from closures like this in the future. And as a bonus, if you stick around until the end, I'm also going to share how you can determine which US banks your US LLC can open accounts at, 100% free. So stick around for that. But real quick, in case you're new here, I'm Chris, head of banking relationships at GlobalBanks, where we help business owners and investors solve banking problems in the US and around the world. And a lot of the time, that means helping business owners open new accounts after they've had an account closed down. So let's look at this client and his business and get a sense of what we're dealing with. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Like I said, this is a US LLC with a single member owner. He's a European, so EU citizenship, EU resident. So that means he's a foreign non-resident of the United States with a US company. Pretty standard for the clients that we see. And it looks like he's involved in online services, so marketing, consulting, that sort of space. And his clients are going to be located globally, though the majority of them are in the United States, which is good from a US banking perspective when you're going to be dealing with transactions to and from the account. Okay, so like we know, he already had his accounts at RelayFi closed, though he does have another backup account at Mercury Bank. There's some issues there considering all of the account shutdowns that they had over the last year, but we'll talk about that in a minute. He's looking to open an account with a major US bank. This is the most common thing that people ask us when they come to look to open US bank accounts for their businesses. They want a big bank. Think Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, things like that. And no surprise, he's looking to open remotely. Now, this is interesting. He actually has the ability to make $100,000 plus deposit, and his business is generating over $1 million a year. I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute in terms of what that means for his account and for his options, but he's in very good standing and we're going to be able to help him open accounts. Okay, so again, he had digital bank accounts with RelayFi and Mercury, but earlier this week, RelayFi shut down his account. And he shared his concern with us that Mercury could be next. And frankly, that's a valid concern, especially after Mercury's massive crackdown last year on accounts that violated their updated restricted country list. Like I said, I'll dig into that in a little bit, but first let's look at this Relay closure. Now, like most account closures, this was totally unexpected. This particular client had the Relay account for over 3 years. The account was in good standing, no major changes to account activity or transaction activity. He wasn't sending money to or from new parties. And importantly, there were no warnings or compliance questions before the closure. Then the account gets closed without any reason being given by the bank. Now, this is where things get a little interesting here, because what happened is that Relay actually came back to this particular client and said it wasn't their decision. They were being forced by their banking partner to actually close down the account. And Relay actually wanted to keep the account open. And this is a common problem with US digital banks because they're not really banks. They're technology platforms. Basically, digital wrappers that can take a local bank in Kansas and turn it into an entrepreneur-friendly banking platform that caters to clients from all over the world. But what they can't do is change the underlying bank's compliance. And all digital banks are facing this problem, whether it's RelayFi, Mercury, Ro, Brex, etc., etc. But listen, if you don't have one of these bank accounts for your US LLC, you should open them. Go for it. But you need to be real about the limitations of these accounts. In particular, that they're not real banks and they can close down anytime with zero recourse and zero warning. So why was this specific account closed? Well, the owner thinks it had to do with withdrawing funds to a European bank account, an account in his name as the owner of the US LLC. Now, whether or not that's true, we'll never actually know because RelayFi can't confirm or deny, nor can the banking partner, because it's actually illegal for them to do so, thanks to tipping off laws, which basically means no bank or licensed financial institution can tell you why they close your account or start conducting investigations. Instead, they just say your account's closed and there's nothing we can do about it. Though interestingly, during the Mercury account closures last year, there was a lot of clarity that came from that situation because it directly related to an update to the restricted countries list by Mercury's banking partners. And those restrictions and the updates related to accessing accounts in a restricted country, having an owner who is a resident of those particular countries, or even sending transfers to and from those countries. And the one standout example here that a lot of people don't think about, it's something that we talk about a lot, and it's accessing the account from a restricted country. Now, an easy example would be if you have an accountant or a manager or somebody that works for your company and needs to log in to the online banking platform, and they do so from a restricted country, something like Ukraine, for example. Well, if that person logs in, your account has now been accessed from Ukraine, a restricted country. And as a result of that, a digital bank like Mercury may shut down the account. If that happens, there's basically no recourse. Your account's gone and you're going to have to go ahead and open a new bank account, whether that's a digital bank or a brick and mortar bank. Though depending on the restricted countries in question, there are going to be a lot of differences in terms of the banks available to you, both digital and physical banks. But if you're interested in looking through those options and seeing which banks you may be able to access for yourself, don't hesitate to contact us and we'd be happy to help you navigate your options. So what can owners of US LLCs do to protect themselves and their businesses? Well, first, they need to open with the right banks, real banks, banks like Chase, Bank of America, PNC, though you should probably avoid Wells Fargo. But there are other options out there to choose from. And yes, foreign non-residents can open at these banks, including 100% remotely. We help clients do it all the time. And that's what we're going to help this client do too. So let's talk specifics. Generally speaking, if you want to do it with a limited hassle and get the bank support throughout the entire onboarding process, you will need to meet a few qualifying criteria. Each bank is a bit different, but basically you need to be coming in with a six-figure deposit, so $100,000 or more. You ideally want to have revenue that's over $1 million per year already before trying to open the account, and your revenue should be growing. Now, when it comes to citizenship, this is a little bit easier when you're coming to physical brick and mortar banks because they have limited restrictions when you compare it to some of the digital banking platforms. Again, we're talking banks like Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, banks that are used to dealing with international clients, international transaction activity, and frankly, they have higher risk tolerance because they've got better onboarding and compliance teams to handle that client profile. Of course, residency is a bit different than citizenship, and there is going to be heightened risk depending on where you live. So you still need to choose which banks to go to based on their appetite for your particular country of residence. Now, after reviewing this particular client case, I think what we're going to end up doing is helping him open either with Chase or Bank of America. It will depend on a few criteria, including his preferences and where he's sending money to and from, but both of those banks should be able to meet his requirements, but we will be digging in and helping him decide which one of these banks is going to be a better fit for him. But the bigger win here isn't even opening a bank account. It's removing all of that banking stress and worry from this client's day to let him get on with his life, his business, and to spend all of that wasted energy on positive activities that will help him grow his business, serve his customers, or whatever else he wants to be doing with his time. And that's why we encourage business owners to open accounts with real banks because they work. And unlike digital banking platforms, they typically have fewer problems, fewer headaches, and fewer chances of having your accounts shut down randomly. Meaning you can just focus on whatever it is that you would prefer to be doing with your time. But even if you open with a major bank like Chase or Bank of America, you do still need to be smart about your banking activities. So, as promised, I'm going to share a few things that this client and you can do to protect your accounts from closing in the future. And the first thing that you can do is use cross-border transfer services or FX providers, depending on the transaction volume, and confirm which countries these providers are comfortable with before you go ahead and send funds. Importantly, you can directly connect your bank accounts to these providers and then facilitate transfers. It's easy and it helps protect your accounts from being shut down due to transactions. Next up, as a foreign non-resident, you need to be aware of the bank's restrictions on jurisdictions and where you can access your accounts from. This is especially important if you're traveling because online banking systems will flag new locations, IP addresses, etc., that are trying to access the account. So what a lot of people do is they use a VPN. This is good because it lets you choose a standard location to log into your account every time you access online banking. Plus, it's just good practice from a security perspective because it gives you a secure private connection to the internet to protect your information and your financial accounts. And lastly, if you're using payment cards to complete a lot of transactions, we'd suggest looking at a card that's separate from your primary bank account. For example, If you have a business bank account with Chase, get yourself or your business an Amex for in-person purchases, or at least a card that doesn't incur foreign transaction fees. And if you implement these 3 things, you should remove around 90% of the reasons why banks will close down your accounts. Though this does assume you were able to get the US bank account opened for your business in the first place. And unfortunately, not all businesses can qualify for opening a US bank account. But there is a quick way for you to determine if you can open a US bank account right now. And over the next 30 seconds, I'm gonna tell you how you can do it. But first, if you're getting any value out of this video, can you do me a favor? Hit that like and the subscribe button. It really helps our channel and tells us that you want us to make more videos like this one. Okay, so here's how you can tell if you qualify for opening a US business bank account. And there's 2 things that you should know. First, it's 100% free. And second, it only takes 2.5 minutes to complete. So really, there's no reason that you shouldn't do this, because our team of banking experts is going to take a look at your actual business, conduct a free assessment of your business activities, and tell you if you'll be able to open in the United States with real brick and mortar banks or not. Now, to do this, you just need to click the link in the description and fill out a few details of you and your company. And we'll save you countless hours contacting banks trying to determine where you can open or not, and from submitting applications at banks that you don't even qualify for in the first place. Plus, you'll get an answer back from our team within 24 hours. You can then do what you want with that information, including contacting banks yourself or using our account opening services to help you successfully open accounts and navigate the onboarding process. And if you do end up using our services, we'll help you open accounts in the US for your business 100% remotely with major US banks, as long as you qualify. And there are no gimmicks, no middlemen, and no extra fees. It's a straightforward solution to finally solve your banking problem. So click the link in the description, fill out a few details, and see if your business qualifies to bank in the United States. And then when you're done filling out your form, you can come back here while you wait for us to get back to you and hear the craziest thing that I've ever said about banking in the United States by